Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you, Richard, for taking your time to come and educate all of us on how to run a board meeting effectively. We have a lot of questions, and a lot of these are regarding how to handle our members of the association and their behavior, in addition to our board members. So anyways, we've got lots of good information that Richard's going to cover, and we look forward to today. If you're not familiar with Castle Group, we are a full service on-site property management company. If you're in need of management and or have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information will be at the very end of this presentation, along with Richard's. And any questions that are not answered, we will be sending out some emails to connect with you guys, and are happy to answer those afterwards. So Richard, I'll turn it over to you and let you tell a little bit about your firm, and let you get started.
Sure, thanks a lot. I want to thank Castle Group for inviting me to do this. I enjoy your webinars, even when I'm not the speaker. They're always very informative. I think it's a great service you provide. My name is Richard DeBost, Godey, Danzig, DeBost and Cross. We're a full service law firm, but our primary area of practice and my exclusive area of practice is condominium and homeowner association law.
Thank you. All right, are we ready to learn? Here we go. You want to start with the next slide?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so what we're, you have a lot of board meetings, you have a lot of membership meetings, and in the time of COVID, everything's turned on its head. So we're hopeful today to be able to provide you some tips and some techniques, including the modern use of Zoom and those platforms to help you really control your board meetings. The primary, things that you need to do for any meeting is don't just have a meeting because, hey, it's the first Tuesday of the month and that's when we always have a meeting. If you don't have to have a meeting, don't have the meeting. If there's no purpose other than just to get together, don't have the meeting. So have the meeting for a purpose. Provide obvious. These are kind of the big topics that we're gonna get into a little more in other slides. But provide enough notice and come prepared is obviously something you need to do. It's super important to have an effective chair, someone that's going to run the meeting. We're going to get into that. That is, I think, one of the number one things. Have a strong leader as the chair of the meeting, and then follow the proper meeting protocol and procedures so that whatever business you conduct, it is legal business. Because I can't tell you how many times you go back and look at board meeting minutes because someone's challenging some action of the board, and you'll find the minutes don't really reflect what the board did. So it's very important to follow the proper procedures so as to not give any people that are anti-board anything to say, well, there wasn't enough notice for the meeting. I mean, those are little kind of technical things, but they mean a lot when you're in litigation and the meeting wasn't properly noticed, or the minutes weren't effective, or the board member wasn't really there.
Correct.
Have a clear, the documents and agenda and minutes. We talked about that. We're going to get into that in greater detail. Within reason, and we'll talk about how to control this. Everyone should be given their fair amount of time to talk, but don't let them filibuster, and we'll talk about how we can do that. This goes back to having the purpose of the meeting. Have a purpose and then accomplish the purpose. I mean, know what you want out of the meeting, not let's just sit around and talk about it and decide on the fly. Decide what the end purpose is before the meeting starts, and again, document the minutes properly. Okay. Certain basics that are applicable to Florida condos and HOAs and cooperatives, if we have any cooperative board members out there. Number one, what is a board meeting? We get into this all the time. A board meeting occurs when a quorum of the board is together and they discuss association business. It's very, very simple, but boards and others try to twist it, call it a fact-finding mission, call it a study session. They want to call it something else to avoid the requirements of a board meeting. You can't. It's when a quorum of the board is together and they discuss association business. And we'll talk about email is not a meeting, etc. But if you're on a Zoom platform like this, or you're live, or the example I always give, your 3 out of your 5 board members are treading water in the deep end of the swimming pool on Sunday at 4 o'clock, and they look up and say, hey, we need to paint the clubhouse. It's looking shabby. And another board member says, yes, we do. If 3 of the 5, which is a quorum, are there treading water, they've just had a board meeting. And if it wasn't properly noticed, that's an illegal board meeting. So don't try to twist it. A quorum of the board is together in real time and they discuss association business. That's a board meeting.
Which includes phone calls as well.
Phone calls, if you're on a conference call together, now emails are different and we'll talk about that, but if you're in real-time communicative ability like we are here today, who can attend? All the members of the association, which are generally the record title owners, and any invited guests can attend board meetings, okay? Quite often you'll get a renter that wants to show up, you'll get somebody that's not on the title to the property that wants to show up. Technically, it's the members of the association as defined in your governing documents and who the board wants to invite. So if the board doesn't want that non-member there, they don't have to let them be there. Who can speak? The law is pretty clear. All members can speak on any agenda item for whatever your reasonable speaking rules are, which are generally accepted to be 3 minutes per topic. They can't just go off on any topic they want. It's per agenda item. If the item's not on the agenda, they do not have a legal right to speak. Now, if your agenda contains, which many board meeting agendas do, they'll contain at the end something like owner comments or good and welfare, just some generic term, then the owners can speak on anything they want. But if you take that off, which is not required by law, and your agenda is dogs, parking, and pets or something, they can speak on dogs, parking, and pets, not on the bushes aren't cut right. And they speak when they're recognized by the chair. One thing I do want to say, when can they speak at the meeting? It's got to be after the meeting's called to order and before the meeting is adjourned. Sometime within that window is when they speak. I've seen often where the boards have the 15 minutes before the meeting's called to order is your time to talk to the board. Well, guess what? You're having a board meeting because you're sitting up there at 5:45, even though you said your meeting started at 6. So that's still a board meeting and they should be able to talk sometime within there, preferably before you vote on the agenda item or right when you're going to vote on the agenda item. Having them speak on agenda items at the very end of the meeting, while not illegal, is really not fair and not the best way to do it.
Gotcha. So that goes to open forum. So open forum prior to the agenda item, would you ever recommend, one of the questions is, would you recommend, having an open forum prior to each motion or item on the agenda? Or have them have a blanket statement on each motion when they speak?
I think if it works right and your chair is a strong chair, the best way to do it is have the board make a motion, have the board second it, discuss the motion, and before the board votes, you say, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this agenda item? Or do it right as the agenda item comes up. Having them speak at the end or at the very beginning when they haven't heard what the board is kind of thinking of doing is kind of doesn't really get, if they do have good information to give the board, that would help them to give it.
And that's true. A lot of times the boards within that discussion, they've already done the research and the members can hear that discussion openly and see that the board's done their fiduciary duty, right?
Absolutely. We can go to the next one. When can you have a closed board meeting? When the lawyer is present in real time, either on the phone or at the meeting or on a Zoom like this. And the purpose is to discuss litigation. You're going to sue somebody or you're about to be sued or someone or the lawyer tells you this needs to be a closed board meeting for attorney-client privilege reasons is number one. Number two is personnel matters. The law doesn't define what a personnel matter is, but in its most conservative interpretation, it means an employee of the association. Most associations do not have employees, they have vendors. So I'm comfortable telling you could meet to discuss your manager, even though they're not technically your employee, but you can't broaden that personnel exception for a closed meeting to discuss just anything like the landscaper or the pool guy. It really needs to be an employee or your manager, which is the closest thing to an employee that you have. The last one says emergency. The law doesn't really say you can meet in private in an emergency, but under the emergency powers found in the statutes, it says you can adjust meeting times and meet with less than proper notice in an emergency. So if it was a true emergency, I really wouldn't worry about, whether you properly noticed it or everything, or you met in private. But emergencies don't come up very often. Fire, flood, or blood, or in this case, pandemics count for emergencies. Proper notice, there's two types of board meetings, special and regular. Regular board meetings require 48 hours single posted notice. Special board meetings require 14 days mailed and posted notice to all members. Special board meetings occur when you adopt a special assessment, when you adopt the budget in a condo or a co-op, not necessarily an HOA, when you adopt a rule that affects the use of the unit or the parcel, that's a special board meeting. And what am I missing? When you adopt electronic voting, you have to do that with a board resolution at a special board meeting. Next. Okay, meeting
Talk about
purpose.
the meeting purpose.
Yeah, we came over some of this, but obviously make the reasons for a meeting are to make decisions. You can't vote by email. Now you can talk via email. The statutes say the board can communicate with each other via email, and it is not a meeting. So that's how you get around the quorum being together. So you can talk with other board members about planning the meeting, your thoughts, pros and cons on the decisions you're going to make at the meeting, but you can't vote on the email. And remember, those board emails, while not always considered official records, you should treat them as if someone else is going to be able to read your emails, and you don't want to put things in those emails that are not you don't want people to read.
Yeah. What about texting? Someone's asked.
In my opinion, texting would be the same as the email, although I don't believe the Division of Condominiums has ruled on texting. I believe they would rule the same way, that your texts are not a meeting, but you can't make decisions on texts. And while it may be more difficult to get those texts, you better not put anything in there you don't want other people to read. I would caution you on that. Other reasons for a meeting are to set policies, like a smoking policy or a pet policy or whatever policy you might have, which are kind of like rules. Solve problems. If there's an issue that is concerning the community and you want to get everybody together and hear what they have to say. Plan and evaluate and inform the owners are the general things that you do at board meetings. We all know that. Okay, meeting preparation. There's really two ways, and Laura, you might be able to shed some light on this better than I can. The two concepts for meeting preparation is a lot of times the board is very hands-on and they set everything up and they give it to the manager and they say, set up a meeting and this is what we're going to do. Other boards, I think, are more, they let the manager do it all. They tell the manager gets everybody together. What is your experience between hands-on versus kind of let the manager do everything boards, Laura?
Well, typically you start with the agenda, and typically the board president is drafting the agenda. So the board president, what I have experienced is they reach out to the board members. What do we want to see on this month's meeting, agenda? They all respond to the board president. The board president then sends that over to the manager to, put together that agenda and then gather the supporting documents, right? So if we're going to look at a landscape bid, the manager's already has already done the RFP, and they have everything put together, and that's put together in a binder that has new business, old business, and that's presented to the boards. Our goal is that we try to get that to the board members. As long as we have the information and the agenda as the managers, we can have a board binder put together 2 days prior so the boards can go through and look at all of the information and be prepared for the meeting. Right. But agenda is definitely drafted typically by the president.
Yeah, one question that comes up a lot is who sets the agenda? Who has the authority to control the agenda? And most governing documents, in my experience, aren't real detailed on that. I certainly believe that if a majority of the board wants something on the agenda, it goes on the agenda. Okay, the president is not the gatekeeper that can say, I can stop anything. If you got 3 out of 5 board members that want it on the agenda, it goes on the agenda. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I've seen bylaws that will say 2 out of the 2 board members want it on the agenda, or the president wants it on the agenda. But sometimes there's battles about keeping things off the agenda. The best thing to do would be to properly outline it in your bylaws, because that comes up a lot as who has the authority.
So if it's not there, you may want to, if it seems to be a contingent discussion on a monthly basis, because that is one of the questions. Can the president just eliminate items off of the agenda if they don't want it on there?
if a majority of the board says no, you can't take that off the agenda, then the majority of the board controls, okay? The president just doesn't have a superpower to do that unless the documents are very unique. Generally, the president is the chief executive officer and they would have the ability to control the agenda, but this comes up when some of the people want it on the agenda and some people don't.
Yep. And sometimes your members are more vocal about what they would like to see discussed,
And both statutes allow the members on a 10% or 20% petition to force a board to hold a meeting on an item they want. So there is a way for the members to make the board hold a meeting. Now, holding the meeting and making the board do anything are completely different. So oftentimes they'll say, here's a petition. You have to hold a board meeting on firing the landscaper. Okay, you got to hold the board meeting, but they can't make you make a motion, second, and vote to fire the landscaper. So keep that in mind.
Is that with condo and HOA law?
Yes, they both have, and I forget the percentages, but they both have a method of allowing members to force a board meeting on a topic of the member's choice.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody should be clear about the role they play and what needs to be done prior to the meeting. I mean, again, the manager will be an effective tool in that regard. The chair,
committee chairs sending in their reports to the manager. Yeah,
we're going to get into committee chairs and their reports because that's an area where you can speed up meetings. A lot of what we're talking about today, and I know one of the questions was, in my opinion, and a lot of high-powered executives say no board meeting should last longer than an hour. And I think that's your goal. No board meeting should really be more than an hour unless it's something very unique. And, obviously you might need more than an hour, but the board meetings that I see that go beyond an hour, and we're going to get into that, is because of a lack of organization and control. And we'll get into that more in a minute.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions as well. So how do you how are you efficient with your time and what's the average time? And again, it goes, if you're prepared, meaning you have the proper proposals needed to make a motion, right? You have the proper data. So before you put that item on the agenda, if you have the documents to support making a motion, then it makes the process smoother.
Right. And in regards to the role of the other board members, their role is to come to the meeting prepared to make a decision. They shouldn't, when you send out that board pack ahead of time, if a good board member will read it, okay? Don't walk into the meeting and then open up the big book and start reading it and say, well, I can't really decide because I haven't read this. You're not fulfilling your role properly. It's not illegal, but it wastes everybody's time.
Right. That's a good point. Look at the quotes, look at the meeting minutes, make sure you review all the documents. Yep.
Right. Another thing that we'll touch on this that I've seen, and Laura, you can tell if you find this effective. I've been at some meetings where when they set the agenda, they have put a amount of time they're going to discuss each item, like landscaping, 10 minutes, dogs, 5 minutes. And while that's not an absolute handcuff that you can't go over the time limit, it kind of sets the image in people's mind that, okay, we're going to talk about this for 10 minutes. So if you're not using that technique, I try to start using it to see if you can break down the items into how much time we're going to spend on it. And then the chair can say, look, we're over the 10 minutes here. We need to make a decision. I think that is, I don't know if you found it to be effective, Laura.
Yeah, I have not gotten to see that myself, but I think that would be a great way to you set the expectation, right? It's a matter of setting the expectation for the meeting, meaning we hear you, we hear that that's an important topic to talk about. We'll give 10 minutes. Let's talk about the high points on it, but we're not going to get into the weeds of it, right?
Right. I think we can go to the next one. Okay. Effective chairing. Let's go on to the next one. This is one of the keys to having a organized, controlled meeting. And I have seen, keep this in mind, the president, while usually the chair of the meeting, may not be the best person to chair the meeting because, this is politics, if you want to talk about it. And maybe the president doesn't really want to make the constituents mad by cutting them off. So give the chair to the manager, or give the chair to the lawyer. I'm sometimes the chair, and we don't really have a dog in the fight. So a strong chair will keep people organized, keep them on track and not let the meeting turn into just a big round table where everybody starts talking all the time. So number one, a strong chair, and maybe your president's skill set is not being the chair of the meeting. So ask them to move it to someone that has a little more, is a little stronger in that regard. So stay on track, respect those timelines we talked about. Give everybody a reasonable amount of time to talk if they want to, but encourage a couple of things. If you're going to stand up and stand in line and everybody's going to say, I agree with what Jim said, and here's what Jim said, that just wastes and how often do you see that from the audience, is that 10 people will get up and effectively say the exact same thing. So encourage them. If you will also, if you ever watch legislative session live on TV for the state of Florida, which I do because I'm weird and I like to, you'll see their chair in their committees. And while they'll have 30 people signed up on the thing to talk about the topic of the legislation, after the first person has said their part, if everybody behind them agrees, what they'll do is they'll stand up and say, for the record, I'm John Smith from the ABC lobbying company. I stand in support of what was said, or I stand in not in support, without rehashing it all. So encourage people, don't reiterate what everybody said, but some people, they want their piece. If they got their 3 minutes, they've got their 3 minutes. One other thing is, don't let the audience members, this is something they love to do when there's a controversial topic. Your board policy for audience member participation should be, you cannot assign your speaking time to another person. So you get one person that stands up and the 10 people said, I give my 3 minutes to John. Now John has 30 minutes to filibuster. No. Your policy should not allow that because it can get really out of control. So let everybody speak 3 minutes at a time, no rebuttals, etc. And stick to what you're trying to accomplish. When they veer off on other topics, that's maybe for another meeting. Let's stick to the topic, which is dogs or whatever it might be.
And you can set a policy for that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
correct,
yeah.
Richard? Yeah, set a policy with your guidelines of how you're going to run a board meeting and
Yeah.
what the etiquette's going to be.
Yeah, one of the things you can do is require them to sign up as they come into the board meeting to speak. That's very effective in respectfully telling people, you didn't sign up, so you can't talk. Now, is that make them happy? Not necessarily, but you're allowed to adopt reasonable participation rules, which are generally 3 minutes per topic, no rebuttals, no assigning your time, and you got to sign up as you walk into the meeting to be a speaker. That's a good policy that keeps the audience participation controlled. Okay. This is kind of a little bit of what we've already talked about. You should encourage the participation of all board members. They're there for a reason, and include them. If they really don't participate or come to the meetings prepared, maybe you pull them aside and said, maybe board membership is not your thing, try to get active board members. Again, let everybody have a little bit of time to say their side, and we're going to get into later about how people try to take over meetings and control them to stop the action from being taken. Ensure that the members understand the discussions and terms of an issue by asking for clarification when necessary. So just make sure everybody, sometimes you have a motion and people don't understand it and they think something different. So it's good to make sure everybody is clear on what we're discussing right away.
That's all good points. So another question regarding, when you're allowing all board members to speak, how do you stop a board member from overstepping their allotted speaking time, or set some boundary to that?
Okay, well, one of the ways, Robert's Rules of Order actually says the proper order for board action is motion, second, discussion, vote. If you don't get a second to a motion, there is no discussion. So if, as in a lot of board meetings, you kind of skip these around and the minutes still reflect that you had a motion and a second, but oftentimes the discussion starts first. If you want to avoid that, If somebody makes a motion and nobody agrees with it, don't second the motion. If there's no second to the motion, there is no discussion. So the board member that always wants to bring up the same thing over and over and over and over again, even if it's not on the agenda, just say, well, why don't you make a motion for what you're trying to accomplish here? Okay. And then don't second the motion. And then, sorry, Jim, nobody seconded it. Moving on. That's one way to do it. But set parameters. Again, a strong chair will keep people from talking too long. If you're on a Zoom meeting, it's really easy. Just mute them. I mean, that's the beauty of this Zoom platform kind of thing, is that you can very easily control the people. Whereas live, you really can't. If they're just going to still continue to talk, you can't put your hand over their mouth. So next one. Okay.
Conflicts.
Yeah, conflicts.
Lots of questions around that.
Yeah. A strong chair will try to diffuse, don't let things get, I mean, I've been at board meetings, and I'm sure you have too, Laura, that, they can get, and there have been instances where there have been physical, fights at board meetings. A strong chair, maybe it's time to adjourn the meeting and cool everybody off for 10 minutes, recess the meeting. But you always have the one board member that is just wants to take over. And if you give everybody a time limit, if he won't shut up, you just continue to do your business with the other board members. If this person simply won't stop, is one way to do it, or adjourn the meeting. Ensure the decisions are made clearly and explicitly by vote so that there's no room left. Yeah, the number one thing, Laura, I know you've seen this. The board says, well, we made a motion to do X, Y, Z. And you look at the minutes and it's, I don't know how they got that out of that. I mean, make sure the minutes reflect very clearly what the board is voting on. So you make the motion, you second it, you discuss it, and then it's a good idea before you vote on it to reiterate what the motion is, so that it's very clear, and it should be as specific as possible.
And then you're reviewing those minutes, at the next board meeting. So everybody needs to put their eyes on it again, ensure that that was correct before you approve those meeting minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I guess the next slide here. Okay. Yeah. Again, the couple of things about minutes. They should be absolutely accurate. Also, what I see so often is the motion will say motion, who made it, second, who made it, and then the vote is 3-2 in favor or unanimous or whatever. That's not proper. Both the Condominium Act 718 and 720 say that the vote of each director shall be recorded in the minutes. That means Jim, yes, Bill, no, Susie, yes. It does not mean unanimous or 3-2. I see that done wrong all the time. So you should record the vote of each person by name, whether they were a yay or a nay. The other big thing is the joke in the industry is they're called minutes, not hours, for a reason. Okay. The meeting minutes, they're not the meeting hours. So one of the biggest things I see done wrong is they will oftentimes record the meeting, and then the secretary will verbatim draft everything that was said in the meeting.
You're not dictated like a doctor's note.
Yeah, you're not legally required at all to put any of the discussion in there. You can say discussion was held, or you can say discussion was held regarding blue versus red, but don't get into paragraphs and pages of Bob said this and then Jim said that. There's two reasons. It takes up a bunch of time, and when you're in litigation and they go back and look at those meeting minutes, the more that's in there about all this unnecessary verbiage is more fodder for, making something out of that. I've had situations where a board member claims they were defamed at the meeting by another board member, and lo and behold, the minutes had something in there that was, potentially defamatory. And that just helped him file, go off the rails on trying to file a lawsuit. So don't load the minutes up with absolutely everything was said, particularly from the audience. There is no legal requirement to put in the minutes everything that Jim stood up and said that Jim says at every meeting, every other week. moreover, you often get the person that will stand up from the audience and say, I've got this 5-page letter. I'm going to read this 5-page letter and I want it on the record and in the minutes. There is no legal requirement to do that. If they hand you the 5-page letter, that can go in the official records of the association, but you are under no legal obligation to put in the minutes the 5-page letter. Moreover, and I know this is one of our questions, Laura, what was the question?
It was open forum. It was. Are you talking about what all do you have to include?
Yeah.
Everything?
Do you have to respond? This is another thing that makes meetings go for hours. Okay. The person will stand up in the audience and make a statement, an accusation, a question, or whatever. The board has no legal obligation to answer the question or respond. Now, if answering the question or the response is going to be informative and helpful and clear up possibly a misconception of the board's position, certainly respond. But what these people really often are looking for is their little mini audience to let them see them stand up and be so tough in front of the board and get into this back and forth with the board. They're looking for that glory. You don't have to give it to them. You can simply, another attorney that's well known, I like his line. He said, when you click the clock for 3 minutes, the board can put its head down and get on its phone and answer its emails to their grandkids. And after 3 minutes, say, thank you, and move on. Or you can say your concerns are noted, like you mentioned, Laura.
Yep.
You don't have to debate with them. If the debate is not going to be fruitful for anything, don't engage them. Just 3 minutes, thanks, move on.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's what we have found. It's just validating their concern, letting them know that we're taking note of it. We'll look into it and, and let it be. Move
Right.
on. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Start the meeting on time. These are kind of clear. Call the meeting to order. Waiting. If board members are chronically late just because they can't seem to manage to get there on time, you don't have to wait for them. If you've got a quorum of the board, 3 out of 5 or 2 out of 3, you can have a board meeting. If Bob continually shows up late with no good reason, just start the meeting. And when Bob or Jenny or whoever it is comes in and says, well, catch me up for the next 20 minutes on everything that's happened, just say, I'm sorry, we're moving on. You can read the minutes. You weren't here. So don't let the chronic late board member keep you from running the meeting.
Right. And another question was asked regarding quorum there. They can be in attendance by Zoom, mobile, or in person.
You can hold a board meeting anywhere in any fashion that the owners or members that have the right to attend can hear. Actually says observe, believe it or not. It'll say the administrative code says observe the board meeting. So I've had situations where the board is holding a Zoom meeting, but they didn't want the owners to be able to do the video portion of the Zoom. So they only gave them the call in. And I said, now the statute says they're supposed to be able to observe the board meeting. So if you're having a Zoom meeting, they have a right to watch and participate. If you're having just a telephonic meeting, obviously no one is observing anyone. So I think that's fair because there's nobody observing. But you can hold a meeting these days in all of those platforms. Let's see. This is the same as the last slide. Okay. Meeting procedures and quorums. Okay. So what are the basics of a meeting? Okay. The chair calls the meeting to order, and it should reflect the meeting was called to order at 10:05 a.m. on June 2nd, 2021, whatever it is. Establish that there's a quorum was there. A quorum is established by the presence of directors A, B, and C. Proof of notice is established. Now, again, Laura, you tell me. The statutes say that whoever sends out or posts the notice is supposed to sign an affidavit by.
I think there is. Yeah, we have an affidavit. I would put it in the board binder,
right.
And the board president would sign that yes, the meeting was duly noted.
Right, and I see that overlooked a lot. Okay, and I recently am just involved in a DBPR complaint where a special assessment was adopted, and the person is challenging that it was adopted properly, and the DBPR investigator said, can you provide us the affidavit of the meeting?
Quorum.
previous posting, and guess what? They didn't have it. So that's an important thing to have, to establish proof of notice. Next slide. Okay, review the agenda, and if you've got those timeframes on the agenda, point them out. Okay, folks, here's our agenda. We're going to stick to these timeframes pretty closely so that we can all get out of here within an hour and then move on. Review and approving of previous minutes. Especially at annual meetings, does anybody want us to read the minutes? No, just accept them as presented, or if someone has something they need to change, but don't read the minutes. The minutes are in the records. People can read the minutes, so you don't have to read them out again. Calling for motions, second, discussion, and voting. That's the chair's role. That's the order it should be in, like I said, and you can use that lack of a second to control people. As long as those items are in the minutes, the fact that maybe you started discussing the dogs on the agenda before you made a motion is okay. It should go in the minutes, though, as motion, second, discussion, and vote. And then obviously the adjournment is just like the starting the meeting. It was adjourned at 8:09 p.m., whatever it might be. Okay, agendas and reports. There's some good information in here when we put this together that I thought, yeah, I've been to a lot of those meetings and this could really help. So you have the topics that are to be covered, the action items, what are you supposed to be doing? And we talked about a timeline for each one. Next. One of the questions that comes up a lot is, what if something's not on the agenda? Can we talk about it? I think that was one of our questions. The board can talk about anything it wants at the board meeting, but if it's not on the agenda, they can't take action on the item unless it's an emergency, which I think requires 2/3 vote of the board to declare it an emergency item. And again, an emergency is not because it's inconvenient. An emergency is fire, flood, or blood, or COVID. We had it. So not everything's an emergency because, hey, Jim's going on a cruise tomorrow and he won't be here. But, that is helpful to have the agenda and stick to it. But you can discuss anything you want, even if it's not on the agenda. You can talk about it, and then say, hey, well, maybe we should take action on this at the next meeting, and you put it on the agenda. So you don't have to not discuss something because it's not on the agenda. You just can't vote on it if it's not on the agenda.
Yep. We could say that 5 times over. There's lots of questions on that.
Okay.
Discussion is okay. Action is not if it's not on the agenda.
Exactly. Okay. And I think we'll get to this. One of the things I've seen, and when I was a young attorney and I had to bill hours and show my boss how many hours I billed and all of this stuff, I didn't mind sitting at meetings for hours and hours because it was easy billable time. Okay. Now I will pay you to let me leave. Okay. Because I just, I like to be there, but I like to be there for a purpose, and I don't need to be there to listen to the mulch. I was at a meeting, an annual meeting. This was a members meeting. And I know committee people are good and they have their passion. The person that likes flowers and plants is the landscaping chair, and they're very proud of the work that they do. And I applaud them for that. And that is fantastic. But at a meeting I was at recently, the landscaping chairperson stood up and she even had a PowerPoint. Okay. So for 25 minutes, we were literally watching. And over on the corner of the tennis court, we had a eucalyptus tree, but we've now planted a palm tree. Here's a picture. And we replanted the flower beds with petunias instead of pansy. I know I don't know, maybe I'm cynical because I've done this for so long, but the point is, let them prepare their report, put it in the minutes and the board pack, and let any owner that wants to read the detailed report get it. That's fine. But don't have your chair people of the committee stand up and read a 30-minute report about every detail. It doesn't do anything for anyone productive, in my opinion, except slow down the meeting. So I'm not saying you don't want to be thankful for what they've done, and they are excited about what they've done, but you don't need to get literally into the weeds on everything and last a half hour to talk about the landscaping report. I mean, I just think that's an efficient way to really condense meetings and let them submit their report and move on. That is a good technique.
Yep. And we do weekly reports here at Castle Group, and a lot of times, so landscaping is big, especially in large scale HOAs, right? It's the majority of their budget. Right. And they like to show off the different projects that they do, but we do those in a weekly report. And that way the committees feel as though they're able to share everything that they're working on within the community, and the manager shares that as well. But yeah, it's before and after pictures. So that's a good way to do that, is to educate and share with the owners and the members what you're doing. So when you go to the board meeting, it's a quick recap. As you have seen in the weekly reports, we've been doing a lot of landscape improvements, and it's a quick recap.
Right. And these days you can post that report. Most communities have a website. So post it and it can be super fancy with pictures and video, and that's fantastic. Yep. But don't let it clog up the meeting.
Agreed.
Okay. We talked about this, include the reports and any updates in the board package. Just hit what Laura just said. Just hit the highlights of the landscaping in 5 minutes, not 30 minutes. Ask the directors to read the stuff beforehand so they're prepared, and then allow the members to get copies if they want more. Kind of the same thing. If owners have questions, oftentimes the questions are really to the landscaping person, and they'll get kind of detailed. So you might encourage them to meet with the landscaping chair later after the meeting to discuss their particular concerns, rather than them getting into a 20-minute discussion about a particular little issue of that particular owner that really doesn't concern the other owners. So if it's really not a topic that is going to be helpful to everybody, encourage those people to meet privately to discuss their particular concerns about the bush in front of their house in particular. I think that's helpful.
Yep.
Correspondence, same thing. You oftentimes will get letters from owners or emails these days. You're not required to read them. Mr. Johnson sent us an email telling us we're all horrible and here's why, and you don't have to read any of that in the minutes. I know Mr. Johnson will be in the audience and he'll want to read it during his 3-minute time, which he can do. But again, you don't have to respond. Effective, some of this we've already probably covered a little bit, but encourage people to participate. I mean, you want to give them their time to vent. A lot of it is venting, to just let them feel part of the process, and that will help cut down on which unfortunately you can't cut down at all, are these blogs and email next door websites, which in my experience, you tell me, Laura, for the first 2 weeks, they're great. Everybody loves them. After that, they turn into, just the most horrible things you'd never say to somebody's face about the board. So,
it can sometimes not always be the most positive platforms, or factual. So it's important that if there's anything that's seen in the association, we like for it to be reported to the manager so that we're aware, and it's not just on Nextdoor. I had experience when I was on site where it was on Nextdoor. How'd you not know about it?
Right.
But it's important to, report anything that's of concern to the management office so they're aware of what's going on, and that it's factual information that's being shared.
Right. Okay, we can go to the next one. Again, we talked about arrive on time, read the materials, be respectful of others speaking. I mean, don't let people rebut or interrupt. And if you're the chair, you can tell them they're out of order. Now, telling them out of order, great. You can't physically accost them. One thing that I've had on more than one occasion, if the audience is just out of control and they will not, or it's going to be a particularly contentious meeting, you can hire an off-duty sheriff's deputy for usually $100, $120 an hour that will show up in uniform, and you can explain right at the beginning of the meeting. You see Officer Johnson over here in the corner? We're paying him $120 an hour of your money. The reason Officer Johnson is here is because people will not follow our participation rules. So Mr. Officer Johnson will be here at every meeting unless you all can control the outbursts and the interruptions and the physical altercations. That usually after about one time will get people to relax. So it's well worth it if the audience is just out of control. Now, if it's on a Zoom platform, it's fantastic. Your 3 minutes are up, click, you're muted.
Right. And with the Zoom platform, you can use the raise hand option. So there were several questions, how do we use Zoom with and receive, owner participation? So use the raise hand option where everybody's muted upon entry. And then when discussion is allowed before a motion, then you can, you raise your hand, and whomever is the host of Zoom can click on that individual and allow them to speak. They've got a 3 minutes time, and then the host can mute. Yep, mute and unmute.
Right. Or I've seen effective as well on the Zoom platform is they have to type their questions in the little Q&A.
Yep.
And then they don't get to talk.
Yep.
But so that's helpful.
Yeah, you could do both. Absolutely.
Right. Okay, next slide. Okay, carefully word. Well, we've kind of covered all this. Let them speak on each. The number one thing is I go to meetings and the participants in the audience feel like it's their meeting too. So it becomes a big coffee klatch. And while there's 5 people sitting up at the front, everybody is constantly interrupting from the audience and challenging and standing up. That's why a meeting goes too long. The people have to understand they will get their time to participate when we call on you. And we're not going to recognize you before that, and you're going to stick to the 3 minutes.
Right. It's a board meeting, which they are allowed to come to. And so sometimes it's a simple thing. So most board meetings, you have a table at the front of the room and everyone's facing out to the audience. So it feels as though you're presenting to everyone, correct?
Right. Yeah.
And so a little tweak that you can make is make a U shape in your board table, right? So it's more of a U. So the board members are facing each other. You're not excluding your membership, right? And it's easy for you to turn and discuss.
But you're not looking right at them. I like that.
Right. So it's so the board members can see each other well, and it's a conversation amongst the board. And then you include the members when it's time for them to ask their questions and have discussion.
That's great. That's great. Your participation policy really should be written. We have a lot of samples. They're pretty common. So I would encourage you to have a written policy, because they'll say, where does it say that? Well, it's nice to be able to say right here in the written policy.
Yep. Post it, email it, have it posted at the meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
The one. This actually came from a CIA field manual in World War II, which was designed to tell the populace how to disrupt government meetings of the enemy, or public meetings. And so some of these you'll recognize very clearly. So this is what people who want to disrupt your meeting, or most often board members who don't really want you to make that decision, will use these techniques to slow things down. So I think you'll find these entertaining. The first one, obviously make speeches and talk as frequently as possible at great length to illustrate your points by long anecdotes and personal information and experiences. We all know that, board member. Well, up north, the way we did it in Connecticut, one time, and they go on and on. A lot of times that it's not providing anything. It's just trying to delay things. And what we did up north, if I hear that, I'm from up north too. So, I have nothing against that. But oftentimes, particularly when, the law in New Jersey, I don't care what the law in New Jersey is, because it's not the law in Florida. So that's always one that is just completely irrelevant information. How a board handled a problem up north might be helpful. So I'm not saying don't do it, but the long speech is number one. Number two, they interrupt people. You see this board member that won't let the other person get 5 words out of their mouth before they're jumping in. The chair needs to take control and basically say, you're not going to talk. They're talking now. You'll be heard in a minute. Have a strong chair. Here's the one I love the most, number 3, because we see this in our own government all the time. Whenever possible, refer matters to committees for further study. whenever there's an issue in Washington or Tallahassee that is an outcry from the public, but it's uncomfortable for the politicians because they don't really want to do anything, what do? I'm going to appoint a blue ribbon panel that is going to investigate this matter and bring a report. And then they make a big deal about who I'm appointing and their background. And guess what? In 6 months, nobody remembers anything. Nothing ever happens. And the issue's gone away because it's something else. So, trying to appoint committees to study things is a way to delay the action that needs to be done. Okay. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. Of course, that's always one. Let's go to the next one. Haggle over the precise wording of the communication in the minutes or the resolutions when everyone else thinks it's clear. You always have the person that, even though 4 out of the 5 board members are very clear what this means, it goes back to Bill Clinton. Well, what's the definition of is? What is? Okay. You get the person that wants to micro parse the language, which is really just a way to slow things down. I don't understand what, delay, if it's clear to everyone else and you have tried to answer this person's questions, move on. Don't let them drag you down because they think it's unclear when 9 out of 10 people would say this is perfectly clear, because they're not doing it because it's unclear to them. They're doing it to delay your action. Refer back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempt to reopen them. Okay, this is a big one as well. And actually, it's Robert's Rules of Order. Robert's Rules of Order, which is not law, okay, but it is a well-recognized parliamentary procedure. The board has taken action on an item and it passed 3-2, or it failed 3-2. How can you bring that item back up for another bite at the apple? And what Robert's Rules of Order actually says is, if you're on the prevailing side of the motion, you're in the 3, whether it's 3 against or 3-4 out of 5, you can bring up the topic again, okay? If you're on the losing side of the motion, it's 3-2, 4 against, and you're in the 2, Robert's Rules of Order says you do not have the authority to revisit that item of business. It can be revisited by somebody that prevailed on the prevailing side of the motion. So, if you've decided that we're hiring this landscaping company and it passes 3-2, and one of the losing directors says, well, no, I make a motion, we reconsider this and vote again. No, he can't do that under Robert's Rules of Order unless you want to let him do it. So on that, you can't revisit the item that you were losing on. Number 7, scare tactics. I mean, this comes up all the time. I mean, particularly in COVID, okay? And I'm not saying it wasn't warranted, but I was on a board meeting recently where, after COVID got going and we all went through the first kind of closing everything down, as things began to reopen, most communities, and Laura, I know you saw this, opened the amenities with certain controls as to number of people and all of this. I had one board member who was adamant that I don't care what, we're never opening any of the amenities until this is completely gone away because we're going to get sued and it's too much liability, etc. Okay, is there liability with opening it up? Sure. But if you take the proper precautions, it's not much more liability than you already have when you have a parking lot and you have to keep it clean and not slippery, and you've got to make sure the roof is sound, it won't fall on people. So there are liabilities for board decisions, but that just goes with the territory. As long as you've taken the proper precautions with the proper advice from the proper professionals, don't let that will increase our liability. That will expose us. You have insurance. I'm not saying be reckless in any manner, but don't let the scare tactics of we're going to get sued all the time for everything. If you've done your job properly, suits come along and yeah, things happen, but don't let it scare you from taking any action when you've done all your homework to do it properly, because your job is to maintain, repair, replace the community and let it function. So in the COVID example, reopening with proper guidelines, just like every restaurant did.
The
And
CDC guidelines. I mean,
Yeah.
they're clear.
yeah, so you know, that's just a scare tactic to say we shouldn't open anything at all. And then I'd be happy to hear if any of the owners have any examples of some of these things, or Laura, you have some examples of.
Let's see here, as we have a plethora of questions. Let's see. Just a statement was a board needs to control the meeting, but at the same time, they need to earn the trust of the members.
Right. I think that's a very good comment. The board that simply doesn't react to the owners at all and makes it feel like, well, we're just letting you talk because you've got to talk, that's not going to foment a good relationship. I think 9 out of 10 people will see when the board has treated people fairly, given them their 3 minutes, but kept things moving along, everybody feels, you know, invested properly. When the board is too strict and just shuts people down completely, that generally will backfire. And it's usually because the board doesn't want to take the heat. Well, guess what? Part of your job is to take the heat, even when it's often unfounded and defamatory and completely crazy. Your job is to sit up there and let them have their 3 minutes, because not everybody's like that. So you can get too strict on this as well.
Yep. Hey, since we brought up COVID, did the governor extend emergency powers for HOAs? If so, can you give a brief summary of how boards can use it?
And remind me, the last extension, I believe, was in January for 60 days. So I believe we're still under, I haven't heard, I haven't
heard an update since then either.
Yeah, I think the next 60-day extension deadline is coming up in March, which I believe probably, well, you know, 4 extensions ago, we thought, oh, he won't have to extend it again. And he's done it every time. So we're still under a declaration of an emergency. You still have your emergency powers. I think the deadline is coming up in the first week of March. And I believe, I would bet you he extends it again.
Yeah. One question with the emergency powers, one of the questions was, do you think Zoom will not be allowed for annual meetings and or board meetings once the emergency power is removed?
No, that's a great question. Funny enough, Chapter 617, the not-for-profit corporation statute, for years, I mean, at least 10 years, probably longer, has always allowed virtual meetings for members' meetings. Now, we all know that there's virtual board meetings that have happened a lot with board members on the phone. So everybody's used to that. There's always 1 or 2 board members on the phone. That's in the Condo Act and the HOA Act. But buried in 617, which is the not-for-profit corporation statute, has always been the ability to allow members to attend membership meetings virtually, count towards the quorum, and participate and vote. That's not electronic voting. That would be virtual voting, like raising your hand like I'm doing now. That's been allowed for years, but nobody really knew about it. Nobody was forced to use it. And all of a sudden, due to COVID, we're like, aha. So the good news is even after COVID, the virtual platforms are available. You can use them. Can you make it mandatory that you only attend that way like you can today because you're of COVID concerns? That's questionable whether you could say you can only attend virtually. I'm not sure you'll be able to do that, but I think you'll find most people will continue to attend virtually after COVID. The glitch is an annual condo meeting where there's an election, okay? The condo election rules say that owners have the right to attend the annual election and observe the opening and counting of the ballots, which you can all do virtually. But the glitch is, it also says that there must be extra ballots available with double envelopes, outside, inside, all of that stuff at the meeting of the condo association and co-op, not HOA, available for members to vote physically in person at the meeting. You can't do that with a pure virtual meeting. And the Division of Condominiums has said, while we legally don't think you can hold a condo election completely virtually, under the current circumstances, they basically telegraphed to us, we're not going to push that real hard. But after the COVID emergency is over, and I'm already involved in some groups, we're trying to rewrite those laws to make virtual participation and ballot counting in condos a thing. So yeah, I think this is the future.
For sure. All right, we're ready. Next slide.
Yeah, I don't think there's many left.
Oh, good. So we can start going through all these questions.
Right.
All right, well, let's get to our Q&A. Where are we at with time? It's 1 o'clock, right on the time. But we want to go to, I'm going to go through some questions that came in live. If we did not answer them, let's see. An organizational meeting. Is an organizational meeting required to be viewed by the membership? Can officers be elected or selected by secret ballot during an organizational meeting?
Yeah, an organizational meeting is still a board meeting, and therefore members have the right to attend, speak on any agenda item, and observe it. So the answer is yes. Yes, the only time a board can vote in secret, which doesn't mean in a secret meeting, it means without the minutes reflecting how each board member voted, is in the election of officers. So you could not, you can pass out a piece of paper with no name on it and say, here are the 2 candidates for president, write down who you want, turn it in to me, and we'll open it up.
Yeah.
And declare the winner. You can vote in secret for the election of officers. That's the only time you can vote in secret.
Okay. All right, I've got another one by Shirley. Our board will meet with our accountant or insurance agent to draft budget or review insurance policies and call it a workshop. The general membership is not invited. Is this legal?
No. Again, that goes to the beginning. You can call it anything you want. If a quorum of the board is meeting with the insurance agent or the CPA, that's a board meeting and needs to be noticed. They have the right to attend and they have the right to speak on the topic on the agenda.
Yep. Again, that goes to quorum of the board, not just a board member. If the treasurer is meeting with the accountant,
That's
different
fine.
story. Yep.
That's right.
Let's see. What about if a board member is meeting, or if the board is meeting to review an application of a prospective new owner to purchase a unit? Again, it comes to a quorum of the board reviewing an application.
Yeah, that is a little more subtle with a problem that could occur there. But first of all, that's a board meeting, okay? If it's a quorum of the board is there, that's a board meeting. So all the board meeting rules apply. What you have to be careful of is in the official records laws for condos, co-ops, and HOAs, there are certain records that are excluded from the right of the members to obtain. One of those is any information obtained in connection with the approval of a sale or a lease, like a criminal background check or a credit report. So I caution boards that if you're going to meet at a board meeting to vote to deny or approve the applicant, try to stay away from saying, well, we're disapproving him because his credit report says he's got a 500. Okay. You can discuss that on, you can say something like, we're disapproving because he doesn't meet our credit score requirement. Or you can say, the criminal background check shows that he's got all of these because owners aren't allowed to get that information. I think eliciting it at a board meeting is treading close to the line. So I would be careful of doing that, talking in specifics.
Okay. Another question regarding HOAs. Is there not any way for an owner to get an item on a board meeting agenda or an item for the board meeting onto the agenda?
Both statutes allow a petition, which takes more than one, usually 10%, maybe 20%. Also look in your bylaws. It'll often have a percentage of what's required to force the board to take up an agenda item.
All right, another one. What are the rules if a meeting decision went too quickly and a board member wants to change his or her vote the next day?
That goes back to if they were on the winning side, and if you put it on the agenda, it can, let me back up. You can't change your vote the next day after the meeting's adjourned and you voted yes. You could write a letter and say, well, I disagree and I should have voted no. Well, too bad, you voted yes. Now, if the board wants to revisit it so everybody can officially vote and change differently, that goes back to bringing up a decided item. The prevailing side would have to agree to make a motion to bring up the topic again. But just because you changed your mind after the meeting, you can't change your vote.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I'm reading through here. We had about 100 questions come in or previously, and then we've got another. So I'm just kind of reading through to make sure we haven't. Is the speaking time frame for a non-board member 2 minutes or 3 minutes, which we've answered? That's 3 minutes.
The rule, they use 3 minutes as the guide.
Okay.
I mean, I think anything less is probably going to be challengeable, and I wouldn't encourage anything more.
At an annual meeting or special meeting, can membership purpose or propose a motion?
That comes up all the time. Somebody will stand up from the floor and say that something that's completely not on the agenda or the limited proxy that went out with what the members are voting on. And they'll say, well, I'm going to make a motion that we fire the landscaper. They can make it. Everybody can chime in and say, I think we should fire the landscaper. First of all, it's probably a board decision. Second of all, it wasn't on the agenda, so you can't take that action anyway. So the best they can do is kind of have a straw poll vote that shows the board there's a lot of support for or against a particular topic.
Great answer. All right. I'm going to do a couple more and they'll wrap it up. Is it ample to only post notice of a pending board meeting at a vehicular entrance to a community and not posted anywhere else in the community?
Yeah, the law only requires a single location posting on the property. Okay. So you're not required to put it at every entrance. You're not required to put it in more than one location for a regular board meeting, which is 48 hours single posted notice. Now, keep in mind, and Laura, you can remind me, if you're in a condominium of 150 or more units, there are rules about also having to post things on your website that you have to have if you're a large condominium. Yep.
Yeah, always. And as long as you communicate that well too. So everyone knows it's posted on our website, it's posted in the clubhouse, it's posted, and it's communicated where these meetings will be posted regularly. You can't change it.
Yeah.
All right, here's another question. For our HOA, we are scheduled to have an owner's annual meeting next month. At that meeting, we will be voting on a total rewrite of our HOA governing documents, declarations, articles, bylaws, etc. So as the HOA board says that it is not required to send out copies of these documents prior to the annual meeting. If the owners haven't seen these documents, how can they vote on them?
Okay, well, that's wrong. Okay. The statute 718 and 720 says that when the owners are asked to vote to amend documents, they must have in their hand a copy of the document with underline and strike through showing what's being removed or added, or if the revision is so substantial that the underline and strike through would just clutter things up too much, it has to have a heading that says the following is a substantial revision of the entire document. See the prior document for comparison. But bottom line is they have to have that document. You cannot take a lawful vote to amend a document when you have not also been provided the literal verbiage of the amendment.
Thank you. All right. I could go on and on and on for questions, but I think we've got most of all of these answered. If your questions were not answered by Richard, I will be following up, and Shauna, my partner, will be following up with emails with Richard's contact information. Richard, are you okay with a PDF of this going out?
Sure. Feel free.
Okay. And then you guys can contact Richard if you would like him to come represent you guys in your associations. But Richard, thank you so much. I think we could talk all day about this.
Right. Thank you.
There's lots of questions and misunderstandings. So thank you so much. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Great. Thanks, Richard. Bye-bye.